So I think before I kind of did some homework and I find this line and I'll read to you. It's from 1900. So sorry, 1900, and it was an ad in an English newspaper to look for people to go for the delegation to the Antarctica. And some people say it's the beginning of advertising, but it's and I'll read to you, and then we'll talk about what it means, right? So it's not politically correct, right? Men wanted for hazardous journey, low wage, bitter cold, long hours of complete darkness, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in event of success. And right, so if you look at this phrase, and many people submit, and that's why it's called the beginning of copywriting. So if you look at commercial business entrepreneurship, it's pretty much this, right? You're not going to die, and you're not going to suffer from cold, but it's many years of pain, uncertainty, unknown destiny. Most people will fail. You put your risk and ego and all your insecurities on the stake. And for the few that actually going to make it, and it requires tremendous amount of luck of many moving parts, then they will have all the good stuff. Right, so it's a little bit like that. So some people hear about entrepreneurship and they say, whoa, it's not for me. And some people just give me more. Right, so the response for this ad, as an example, like most people will say, whoa, it's a nice ad, but it's not for me. And some people will really get excited. And that's like if you look at entrepreneurship into a company that raises money and then become profitable and then exit, that is a very focused, dedicated, dangerous, complicated, uncertain journey, right? So that's kind of what you look for, and that's what I wanted in 1999, basically bulimia of opportunities and growth. It's not right for most people, and there's many other ways to succeed, and there's many other motivation to start a company. That was mine. Whatever it is, I don't know of any cute, simple, easy way to start a company as a second job or even as main job, but you want to keep your 5 hobbies. It's you go to sleep with it, you eat with it, you live it, you are absent when you are present. You are out completely for those years. There's no easy way to do it. Even if there are many ways to do it, none of them is easy. So that's like right? And in 1999 it was like, right?
Can you talk about a little bit just about how you started? Did you start from raising money? Did you start from bootstrapping some kind of a project?
Right, so let's talk about timing, right? So every period has different timing. In 1999, if you had any degree, and I had 2 degrees from here from Tel Aviv University, from engineering, and you have some business experience, then people would dump money on you. It's the bubble days, and anyone which, well, you have a good idea, yes, you're a good guy, will give you money, right? So you have timing, right? So there wasn't enough infrastructure in Israel for companies to grow, not in fintech, but it was time that it's like blockchain or Bitcoin a year ago, right? So like yes, whatever, right? So timing. So at the time, I knew I want to start a company, and it was just a good time to take money. So kind of that's the journey we did. That's
So started raising money.
If I can use it. So if you look at period today, if you come just with sheer energy, you're probably not going to get funded, and you can't start a company. So the challenge today is much more into really crystallizing the idea, the innovation, the plan, the business model. It's really into the substance. You have the infrastructure to find money, you have the infrastructure to find support, you have a lot of the auxiliary services you have today. You have customers, you have companies that are willing to buy from young companies. All of that exists, so it's easier if you have the right idea. So the challenge today, if I see it right, is really to find a good idea. Okay,
okay, now let's jump start to 2005 and Payoneer. Can you talk about the difference between starting your first startup as a guy with no experience and doing a second startup?
So again, I'm trying to give you as much information as I can, and one of the things is tools to make presentations. And I'll answer the question in a second. And the idea is that when you make presentation to investors, to customers, whatever it is, you want to be remembered, right? So, in one of the tools to be remembered is to use provocations, or to use anything that's whatever you compete with other companies before, after you. It's not necessarily if your idea is good, right? They can't take 10 good ideas. They're going to take one. So your competition is not whether the idea is good, it's whether other companies. And you want to. So you're going to use a little bit of provocations here as a tool of being memorized. So hopefully you're going to remember this presentation, right? So if you look at
provocation at your Payoneer pitch that you
I always use provocations. Sometimes it backfires, but typically it's okay, right? If between first company and second company, there's a very, very big difference. And I would use the analogy, right? It's very much like dating. So the more you date, the more better you get at it, right? So especially with investors, right? You're building a relationship with an investor. So analogy to dating is pretty relevant, right? You want to go to a meeting and leave the meeting where there's a sense, I want to spend more time with this person. So it's anywhere between sales and dating, much closer to relationship than it is to a conscious call decision, especially when there's not enough product, right? So you want to be able to go to a place, to go to a guy, and get the sense he's not going to feel, there's a phrase called schmuck insurance. He's not going to feel schmuck at any point. I know all the international guys, Google it. So you're going to feel, he's going to feel safe. Whatever it is, maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not going to work, but I'm not going to be embarrassed with this person who's going to take my money. And the second thing, what he talks about makes sense. And the third level is very personal. Whether there's a trust, there's bond, there's some kind of chemistry, and you get investment from different people, can you connect with different people? So social skills makes a big difference here. And between the first and second company is you're much better in what they want to hear, how you want to pitch, how you get there. And I'm talking about just the funding part of it. The big difference, and listen carefully to this one, right? Many company fails because the entrepreneurs and the CEO don't know the rules. If you're going to hunt elephants, you need to be aware of the tigers, right? So you need to know what you're getting into. And many people fail on bad legal advice because the lawyers tell them you never sign this fucking document, they screw you, and then you have no money and you're done. So the rules of the game are out there. You can learn them. This is a very good program to learn them. Ta-da. I was late, so I ran around the university. So a lot of responsibility lies on the entrepreneurs to know the rules. And most people just don't learn it. So again, this is really, really important tip. So the second time you do know the rules, right? So that's kind of, there's other differences. It's easier to raise money second time, much easier. It's going to be with sweat on the camera.
What would you say investors want to hear?
Stop for a second, I just want to wipe it 1 second. Yeah. Okay.
So I just want to address something you said. You mentioned that you need to know the rules of the game, and that basically you're talking to an investor. So what would you say an investor want to hear?
It depends on the context, of course, right? So I would say, so let's try to generalize it. When you raise money and you just have an idea, then investor would be an angel. And that's a very, very romantic experience. They invest the money not because they can see return. They're not going to see the money in any time soon. They invest the money because they either have some epiphany to the space. If it's medical space, then they lost someone for a specific disease and they want to donate it, or they want to invest in that space, or because they feel that they know a space and they want to be in that game. But you cannot rationalize angel investment. Very few knows how to do it well. So it's really, really kind of personal, we'll call it this way. Okay? So that's kind of on the early stage. And that's really, and most people fail there, right? So if you look at the whole VC industry, all the big money, they can only see companies that made it through the angel phase. You cannot go to a VC because you need to have certain critical mass before you get there. So this is really personal. VC, it's much more templated, much more structured. And over there, there's a whole course, I'm sure, about how to talk to VCs. It's serious. It's complicated.
I would guess that here is more like an angel part. So
yes, angel. But many of you are going to either know friends who have your companies, or going to be in these chats where people frustrate about investors or whatever. So there's a whole phase. Again, most of you are not going to be entrepreneurs, I assume. And if you will, then most of you are not going to succeed. This is the numbers. But you're going to be either part of leadership, part of a small company, join a company. And so understanding the dynamic that the founder CEO face is important. Okay,
we'll go a little bit away from investors. Maybe not too far, but everybody talk about the fact that entrepreneurship, you talked about it a bit yourself, is a roller coaster. In a single day, you can have extreme highs and extreme lows. Can you tell about one personal experience or a certain week you remember that you experienced?
I think for the first year, I'll take it for a few points, right? For the first few years, cash is everything. When you run out of cash, you're dead. So you start a company, you get some money. You should put a big chalk or big board of saying, when are you dead? And then go back. Every expense you do, you should say, okay, how many days I've lost of my life? This is as bad as it gets. Most companies fail because they run out of money, because they believe that if they got $1 million or $2 million from someone, they have infinite amount of money, and it looks infinite. Right now, for most of you, if you think I can have $2 million, I can do everything. But then you start to get into a few salaries and rent, and it's a pretty big commitment, and then shutdown cost is $100,000, and then you need to fly, and then you need to R&D, and then it takes much longer, and then you're done. And I've seen this, can't tell you how many times. So I would say cash is again, I'll emphasize the advice where I really take a position. Some advice, it's really judgment call. This is critical. If you are part of a company or you're starting a company, watch your cash. It's very, very, very tempting to go to another conference, to have a booth in a conference, to go to a meeting with Amazon, because if they get Amazon, you get it. But Amazon have all the time in the world to make whatever decision they want. By the time they make the decision, you're already dead. So the fact that Amazon call you doesn't mean you want to spend the time there. Many of the startups are very fashionable. So you're in a fashionable space, and everybody wants to meet you, and Bank Leumi wants to meet you, everybody wants to meet you. And you can spend the whole money and time based on meetings that will go nowhere. And that's really, really dangerous, and it's very deceiving, and you don't know it. And that's why you need to build some kind of intuition. Is there money there or not? So going back to the dating, is he marriage material or he's just Tinder material, right? So that's okay. And that's the...
I remember I heard a podcast with you that you mentioned that you had a certain point in time that you were not sure if you're going to pay salaries.
Yeah, so cash, as I say, I kind of lost track on the question. So the most challenges is now you have the VC negotiate term sheet, you should have the money, but you don't have the money. And now that can linger in another week, and another week, and another week, and this is really, really stressful, because at some point you even get to a point where you don't have the money to pay salaries. If the deal doesn't, right, and the VC knows it, and then they change the terms, and you have no chance but to sign on new terms. So those things happen all the time. This is really, really stressful. Most other opportunities, let's look at it from a twist, from a good angle, right? So you need to go to a customer Sell them everything. Be as excited as you can possibly be. Get them to sign the agreement. Get them to really start a pilot. And then the next meeting is where you basically have no money, right? So you go to the first meeting and you need to switch mood from a very, very charismatic into a very distressed situation, and you need to switch in no time. And those the kind of skills you develop over time, so you can actually have, like most people, if they are stressed with one issue, they can't function the whole day because they have this big issue hanging on over them. You can't do that. You need to be able to have a very major and few issues hanging over your head that may kill you and still be upbeat on other issues. And that's like, over time, you develop, you get better in it, right?
And another question that we kind of escaped, what made you get into fintech from the first place?
There's I think it's specifically, but so let's look at industry in general. So I can use fintech as an example, right? So when you look at an idea, at any idea, but then I use fintech as an example, right? So here's what Payoneer is doing, right? We move money between companies across borders. So we have Amazon. Amazon need to pay the manufacturers of the T-shirts or the flashlights in China or in Vietnam or wherever. So Amazon send the money to us, we give the money to Vietnam. What basically we do, we tell Amazon, you pay any way you want in Seattle in the US, and you in Vietnam will get the money in any way you want, or China or Bangladesh or wherever they make the product. Okay? So, and sometimes it can be part here, part in Israel, so you have like a lot of people in Israel are selling on Amazon, so they need to get the money, then they need to send it to China, whatever. There's a whole ecosystem of money moving around the world. And that's what we do. Okay? So let's look at the business model, which let's look not specifically to us, but in general. Right? So first, it's a very big market. There's no question. Right? So there's infinite. You can grow and grow and grow, and it's still nothing compared to the big banks. Just give you a sense, we do tens of billions of dollars, which is a lot compared to the Israel industry. And Citibank is doing $3 trillion a day, right? We do tens of billions a year, right? So it doesn't matter what we do ever, we will never, ever, ever scratch their volume. So it's a big market. The second, Citibank or whatever, the big banks, right? MasterCard do, again, trillions. It's infinite. It's like the budget of Israel, like the whole budget is 100 billion, 150 billion of Israel, right? So, and now we're talking about trillions. So, it's a big market. Then it's fairly regulated, and it's a good thing. So if you actually go step by step and you get regulated and you do everything by the book, then you create a critical mass or barrier to entry. Barrier to entry. So then you don't have all these overachievers from the university can one day come with a better idea and do what you do because they need to go through the same process, which is painful.
How many employees today in Payoneer?
1,200.
1,200?
Yeah.
All in Israel?
We try to keep as many as we can in Israel, like 700 or 800.
You have an office in New York.
Sorry, what?
You have an office in New York?
New York, California, Gibraltar, China, Hong Kong, Japan, UK. I probably missed a few. So, yeah, but we need to be licensed everywhere we operate, so we try to. Anyway, so it's a big market. It's regulated. It's when people move money between countries, it has a very high margin. When you move money to Turkey, you know you're going to get screwed. There's no question. You know, like whatever you're going to spend, they're going to take whatever fees they want and fuck the banks, all that stuff. So it's a high margin to begin with. So even if we are cheaper than the banks, we still have high margins. Right? It's a highly M&A-able industry, so it's not like, okay, who's going to buy us? There's enough financial institutions. Competition, if you are regulated, is mostly major banks that have spaghetti technology. So as a company, you compete with the banks on things that they move very slowly, you move much faster. Okay? And then the other component, and you look at it, it's pure luck, right? I cannot overstress how luck is important. Many other people could stand here if I would not be as lucky, and I'm not trying to be, it's not humble, it's really luck, right? So we closed round of financing in July 24, 2008. Two months after that, it was desert. There was nothing. So not only we had money when everybody had died, but we had no competition. No one could start a company. It was easy to hire people. We could make as many mistakes as we want for 2 years, and nothing would happen. It's really, really unfair advantage, right? So it's really Right, so you have so luck, right? So it's kind of a thing. If you look at the industry, you want to make sure that you have the business model, the potential business model ready before you get into that space. The last thing, which is it's important, right? So most people will be able to succeed in the industry that they have some understanding. If you go and you say, I come from, I don't know, make candy manufacturing and I want to do real estate, you're probably not going to make it. You don't know what you don't know. You can manage risk, but the biggest risk, absolutely, outright, is when you don't know what to be afraid of. When you go to a new space and you just don't know what to ask, that's probably by far the highest you can manage, right? So you need to understand the space you're getting into. You can be a project somewhere, but understand it.
You mentioned that you have like 12,000 employees now, but I'm kind of curious, what are the values that were important to you to have in your company from day one?
Okay, a question.
Oh, sorry, I just want to ask if that wasn't your case, because you said like you studied totally different thing. And
yeah, but first company I had two people from the industry. We three of us, and I was just the energy, and they had the brain.
Okay.
Yeah, so, okay. Yeah, and then afterwards we split, and I continued. But I had a year and a half to study it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Values, right? So again, I'm using no values. Right, so it's a provocation I will tell in a minute, I'll take values in two different ways. Let's use the value. When you start a company, there's something beautiful about a group of people that comes together and create value. It comes with passion and dedication and take out of something that doesn't exist, and over a very short period of time create a company that exists, that have customers, that have meaning, that have value, that is vibrant, and have problems and solutions, and the whole thing become really, really energy power of itself. It's beautiful. So there's value over there that you really want to hire good people that wants to work together, and over there you want to make sure that they are appreciated, and that they feel really part of a collective group and meaningful. At the same time, some people, and I hear it in many cases, have values of just be vegan or just be whatever, just we don't do no harm, all kind of things that sounds good when you're profitable. Until you're profitable, okay, there's two reasons why to not look at values. You took money from people, your responsibility is to get the money back, create the value as quickly as you possibly can. That's my compass. So I will do anything to create the value. I would take no prisoners at the beginning, no prisoners. When the company is profitable and you can do PR, you can do anything you want and donate and go to schools and teach kids. Until that point that you have a critical mass, you have one shot and you don't want to lose it. And that's responsibility for you and the team. So people put all their life and souls into this thing. And if you start to question everything or to have a principle, then it's dangerous. Also, when you look at the global companies, values of one end is very different than values on a different end, right? So people adopt the US norms. It's not the Chinese norms. It's not the Israeli norms. It's not the German norms. So eventually you get out that whatever principles, if you have any principle that I want to do it in such a way, do it after you're profitable. Okay. So that's kind of there. But for the most part, there's also, we try to hire very good people and not to let them go. So we have people that I work with for almost 20 years. And it's a relationship, and we fight, and there's a whole commotion around it. But it's like, you don't let good people go ever. Yeah. Any question? Or? Yeah.
When you said accept money at any cost,
sorry?
You said cash was the most important thing when you were starting. Sometimes you're offered, say, some money, but it doesn't make sense in terms of the equity that you have to give or the structure.
So let's talk about this for a second, or I'll just develop it. You get to a place where you're strapped, you are basically about to die, and someone here to save you, but he wants to get unproportional amount of equity, and you feel like it really sucks, right? Mm-hmm. So the first question is, do you have a choice? Yes or no? If you don't have a choice, then it's a very easy question, right? Smile. It's just the way it is, right? So, but I will try to make it more sophisticated than this, right? The issue with investors typically is not the equity, right? So if you look at the stock market, you can go up and down stocks in 5%. If you look at Bitcoin, it can go 20% a day, right? So when you actually get big, you can go up and down crazy. So I wouldn't be too much worried about what happens if other people makes money. The issue with investors typically is the terms. And that's what you need to understand. If they give you terms, for example, you need their approval to hire a VP, or you need the approval to spend above a certain amount, then you're not an entrepreneur anymore, you're an employee. And that makes your life, the quality of life, pretty poor. So if they're like really al dekafot kale, if they're like, I'll translate it, if they're Kermit from the Muppet Show,
Yeah.
then you feel like Kermit. If they can be like the two old guys from the Muppet Show, and then you feel like Kermit. Right, so in other words, the terms makes a very big difference.
Yeah.
I would trade dilution over terms any day. Okay? Yeah. Okay, it's right.
Did you get a good one?
I said I've done, I would say over 35 rounds of VC, and it took me 35 rounds of VC to understand the terms. So, it's yeah, between all the companies, right? Because it's so it's I would say when you raise money, you probably want to have, I'll do a pause and you want to have good advisor. Okay, when you raise money, you want to have someone, and this is important, someone or entrepreneur, CEO that raise money, not a lawyer, not an accountant, not your wife or husband, not your uncle, not a good guy who understands business. An entrepreneur that was CEO that raised money. Anyone else doesn't know what they're talking about. That's why it's really, really empirical. It's not logical, it's empirical. It's a very big difference. All right, so those are really, really tricky situations. Which of the terms that you don't understand to emphasize and focus on, and which are not important. Okay? It's really like things you don't think about. It always comes up. Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who might have started a company in the U.S. but is now trying to start a company here in Israel? What might be the difference?
So there's a treaty between Israel and U.S. U.S. company, both companies, both Free and Payoneer, are American companies, Delaware Incorporated. The whole issue of corporate governing, so I would say, first of all, it makes no difference. If you want to start a new company, great, but there's a logic to where do you want the company be established. And there's a whole issue with corporate governing and where to establish companies. Right? So if, for example, with fintech, we move money to any country. We move money to most of the Muslim countries. We have very big business in Egypt and in Malaysia and Indonesia. And we couldn't do it if we were corporate in Israel. So sometimes it makes a difference where you incorporate. Also, where do you expect the investors to come? So that when you ask about location, I assume you look at the corporate governing. If you look at the people, if you can import the people, U.S., Israel is a very, very easy way to operate together. If that's what your question was. Right?
I meant kind of what are some of the things that, as an entrepreneur in the U.S., you might not understand about Israel that could trigger?
It's pretty much the same. They're rude here, but it's also an advantage because you know what you're getting into. It's like what you see is what you get. And, it's the same. Even in Silicon Valley, how many of them are really American? It's like, it's all with the green card lottery, right? So like I would say very few. If you look at the people who actually develop build companies, so you have the entrepreneurs, that's okay, and that's the same. But the developers, the product, the marketing is very, very international. Even here, if you're going to hire people, you're going to see many of them are immigrants. Many of them are. If you look at Payoneer now, Hebrew is not a language in the corridors. You have a lot of Israelis, but everything is in English. And it's not because they're Americans, it's very international. Most companies are going to start here. Unless you sell stuff to Israel market, if you sell it globally, it's going to be very international. That's
quite a
going
few
to be.
Americans there.
What?
No?
Sorry?
You guys have a good amount of international.
In Payoneer?
Yeah.
We have CEO is American. So whatever we need for vis-a-vis the investment community, we have the cufflinks and the initials on the thing, and we have the right.
I know some people that have worked there for many years.
In Payoneer?
Yeah.
Good things or bad things?
Really? Okay. Good things, I guess, if they've been there for such a long
Yeah,
time.
no, it's okay.
Have you gotten an acquisition offer during the years?
So let's look at the big question, right? If you look at the analogy, right, it's the right. So there's in any space you're into, there's always point of exit. And the question is what exactly you as an individual wants, and what the company wants, and what the investor wants. And it's not right. So it's not like you start a company and then people buys you. It used to be that simple. It's not that simple, but it's a good thing, right? So, for example, in the course of the company, you have many opportunities where investor wants to buy shares or options from the employees. So, from the company is still managed by the same people that runs it, but people sold shares. So people got exit from their perspective. So if you look at acquisition from a management perspective, this is important, right? So Borderfree, we took public and we went to NASDAQ. And it's the best thing when going to NASDAQ is the bell. The ceremony is really, really moving, and it's like with the music and everything, and you press, and it's really like I have a picture. But then it's a nightmare, right? Because you're subject to all kind of really annoying overachiever from Chicago who decided a stock is not performing and do performing, and then like you miss by a cent, and it's just horrible, just quality of life as a management. So nobody wants to go public. As from a management perspective, it's just bad. It's not good. It's a very, very painful investment. You get money from the public. If you're acquired, it's a different story, because then you either blend into a new company or you leave and whatever they buy. But as long as you are independent and you're profitable, why exactly, right? As management, we like the people we work with. We're building company. It grows at 40% a year for the last 11 years. It's fun. So you look at acquisition. When you look at acquisition, you look, do you meet the money? And any one of the people at the company can at any time sell shares to not in the public market, but into secondary market. So most employees that have been there enough time made nice money. Okay, if that's right. So the purpose of the company is not necessarily to be sold.
Okay, some personal question. If you didn't take the entrepreneurial path, where do you think you were today?
Very miserable. I would say entrepreneurship. Let's talk. So entrepreneurship in this context of MBA and business in general, right? So it's measured by if you make money, if the company makes money, the investment. It's all about the measurement, our currency, and the success is measured by how much the investor made, how much the employee made, how much you made. So it's kind of that's the measurement. So that's why it gets all the flair. But entrepreneurship is not necessarily business, right? So I would say people who organize parties or people who organize anything, maybe I'll use the example. I'll take the example, right? So I really like entrepreneurship. I'll show you something that I did as an entrepreneur. It has nothing to do with business, but it helps when you, I'll show you. יש volume? איפה זה? Here we go. That's me. And I go. So entrepreneurship in general is not about, it's not only business, that's the logic. And people may like it, people not, but it's like, right, so for me couldn't think of anything else.
Do you have still dreams, like unachieved things that you dream of?
So I would take it, and I recommend to, I take it again back to, when you look at opportunities and careers, right? So there's many ways. So let's put it this way. Every person that I raise money from, I ask them the same question, right? So all the people I met that I took money from, they're all really rich. Like they don't need to work, or the kids don't need to work, or the grandkids don't need to work, right? So it's always the same questions. What motivates you, right? So you can do anything. Why are you investing? Why are you getting up in the morning? And so most questions are pretty, like most people didn't think about it too much. They just want to be able to be relevant, and they want to be around people, and they want to feel that they have someplace to go, right? So that's the most common question. Some people actually made it interesting. And so one guy said, listen, I'm short, really short. If I'm rich and short, it's pathetic. If I'm CEO and short, then I'm something, whatever. It was like a very deep. Another guy said that he's very old, so he's relevant for his kids as long as he can really bring value of business, not just begging them to come to whatever. And then, so there's on and on. And then one guy, and this is like really connected to, he said, when I start a company, when I run a company, I create a sculpture, whatever. I create something. I create a dynamic, I create an entity that then become life of its own and makes difference and makes great value. And in many cases, if you look at what's, I wish for many people is to spend their career in creating something that they are proud of, that makes them meaningful, that is really something, not just arguing or just shoving papers, just passing the time, but they can see that they, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, there's something that either people use, that they are part of society, that it makes part of either e-commerce or any of the businesses you're in. And then when you can say, I created something, it's a very different sense of career. Right? So if you look at what I wish and what I hope is to continue to create things out of nothing into something that actually becomes accomplishments, right? So
have you invested in companies?
I invested, I lost most of it. I'm not a good investor, right? So investment is a profession, and you need to have a discipline, and you need to be able to. I'm not very good at saying no. So like, okay, they came all the way, and they really want to succeed. Okay, whatever. Okay, so you know, but you need the discipline. You need to understand the space. You need to dig in. You need to do the diligence. You need to be able to continue to invest. You need to be able to make tough decisions, and so it's a profession. Like. Some people just give money because of they believe in you, so take it. And I gave it, but yeah.
How to get first paying customers if you're like you have a young team and you want to sell to like those big companies and enterprise?
So it's amazing, but especially when we are a payment company, so we need to ask people to give us your money, and we may or may not give it to whoever you want us to give it to. And people trust. People trust. If you look at, I can give you a lot of analogies, but like if you look at the Bitcoin, right? So people prefer Bitcoin over central banks, which is like you have like PhDs in, like if you look at the Israel central bank, is like really, really serious people. And the Bitcoin, who knows who's running or who's manipulating the Ethereum? Who knows what people are, like who knows? But yes, so people trust, and I don't know why, but people trust. So when you go to a company and you tell them, listen, I need a chance to, you're my first customer, I want you to give me a chance. More people than you expect actually say, fine, we'll be the mentor that gives you the chance, we'll give you the kiss of life, and then let you work. It's surprising. If you're really, really serious about what you do and you believe and you're committed to it and you take all responsibilities and you're going to fix everything that fucks up at the beginning, people will give you a chance. It's surprising, it's just the way it is. And we took it to the extreme, right? We asked people to send us money, and I'm a nice guy. I'm an Israeli in New York, and right, so people do care.
You guys have a blockchain team on your R&D staff?
So blockchain, I think I don't know that the beginning in many industries. This is my opinion. This is not, this, I don't understand it well enough, and I don't feel strongly about it.
Right.
But technology by itself, I don't wish to be the first one. So maybe a whole layers of company who are going to try and fail, and before it's going to be something or nothing. Going back, there's blockchain. You can get a lot of meetings, I'm sure. The question: can you really get business, and what's the business model, and then so there's something about focus that have a very high premium. You can lose opportunities, but there's something about focus. Stick to whoever is marriage materials. Okay, so this is okay. Yeah.
What do you look for in people when you look to hire someone?
No, it depends, right? So there's a whole, how do you hire people? There's a whole, I would say first, you make mistakes when you hire people. So I would say another very strong advice, and it took me a long time to say it, to verbalize it, and when is the first time to let people go after you hire them? And like someone, it's not my sentence, and it was difficult for me. It took me a year to even accept it, but it's the first time you think about it. You don't do it, right? It's not capricious. But there's a moment you know it's not going to work. And most people don't want to fire, and they continue, and they try to compensate for mistakes, and they hire more people to compensate for someone who's not good. And then there's a difference. People that are really good and people that are good, the difference is 10 times. Right? So there's people who goes to a meeting and come out of the meeting and you have the deal, or you have the relationship fixed, or they trust you, or they want to work with you, and there's some people who are like, yeah, it was okay, but maybe we'll hear from them. So the difference is really, going back to dating, it's such a big difference between if the people are right for that position or not. So I have no issue of letting people go. Sometimes it's really sad, but it's really, really important for the people who stays. So people who stays, they feel much more chosen. They feel much more that their work is being seen, their effort is being seen, and people who are not fitted for their work doesn't stay. And so that's kind of the on people. And then there's a whole gamut of, if you hire for someone for finance, try to look for OCD guys. If you hire from someone for sales, try to look for the narcissistic guys or girls or whatever people. Right, so there's as far as entrepreneur is different, but okay. As far as if you have it or not as an entrepreneur, that's a big question always, right? So there's no way to know, and there's many ways to succeed. But if everything you did so far was okay, and you did everything right, and you did all your homework, and you play the piano, and you don't eat anything fat, and you don't smoke, and you do your gym twice a day, and it's not for you. Right. So there has to be something that you excel in, whether you did Ironman, or you're in the special unit, or you did something that you really, really kind of proud of, that you could stood out. And if you haven't done it yet, then do it, and then right. So if you're a pilot, or whatever, right. So pilot is a good, it's a good start, right. So. Right. So you did something that you kind of stood out. Then you're not going to be facing situation like, in other words, the situation that you need to be outside of norm, and you're going to be a lot of times outside of norm, and when you're entrepreneur. So you need to have some kind of confidence that you can make it. Right. So that's my 2 cents. I don't feel strongly about it. I would say that VC would know more, but that's kind of my 2 cents. Right. I did many stupid things. Yeah.
Okay, you talked about it a bit, but there are many times that you hear entrepreneurs talking about a lot of buzzwords like machine learning. I'm going to do machine learning. I'm going to do blockchain, and a lot of times it's not the product they're talking about, but the technology. So kind of interested to hear your take about it. You talked about it a bit. How is it important to use buzzwords, or is it more about the business model and the core essence of the product?
Again, depends on the context. For the most part, forget about VCs and what they want to hear. Before you spend your time and energy, you want to feel that you really have a sense that even though you don't have all the answers, you have a pretty good feel of what you're doing. Right? It's your time too. So when you start to use buzzwords and it's not convincing, and you start to convince people in the elevator that it really makes a big deal, you need to feel it. So I'll use a few examples, right? So when you have an idea and you really believe in the idea, you don't need to convince anyone. You know it. It's like, right? And when you don't, you try to convince your neighbor, which doesn't understand anything about machine learning, but you still convinced. You try to convince everybody. So it's not a good sign. That's kind of psychologically. Then, so I would say first make sure that you understand this. And then, I mean, you want to hear you want to talk about if a VC. They may say we want to invest in big data, or in cryptocurrency, or in cybersecurity. And then they just want to know that you're in the space, you want to go into the space, and you'll figure out your way around. If Gil Shved would go to a VC and says, I want to do something in crypto security, something, they're not going to, he's not going to finish the sentence. They're just going to sign a term sheet because they know he's going to figure this out because he knows it cold. Right, so in between there, right? So it depends a little bit who the CEO, and sometimes the VC just want to invest in the market. They just want to know that you have some grips, some direction, and you're going to figure this out as you go. Some people don't, and that's a question. And it's a tricky question. So personally, you go into a space and sometimes you don't know exactly how it's going to fall into place. And I can use payments. And there's a question about payments. So, right, so if you look at payments today, what's the future of payments, how it's going to, right? So what you see is, anyone heard of WeChat by now? Yes. Yeah. So WeChat is the largest bank in the world, right? So they have about 1 billion accounts. And overnight, they opened their ability to pay each other. And overnight, they started something which is called QR code. And any homeless person who wants to get some money have a cardboard with QR code on the cardboard, and people just donate money with their phone. This is huge, right? Because you have a situation where China is way above the West as far as payments because they have real-time bank transfer, right? So if you move money from Bank Leumi to Bank Hapoalim, it's overnight, and the next day you see it, and all kind of stories. Why? Why does it take 24 hours to move money in the same currency in the same country, right? So it's like, and the reason is because Masav, which is the system in Israel, is written by people who's now in Dior Mugan, whatever. So, right? So nobody knows, right? So it's like and then in China it's real time. So what you have is in real time you move money from a bank to an account that is for the homeless guy. And it doesn't go through Visa or MasterCard, right? It doesn't go to the authorization system. It circumvents tremendous amount of cost. And those are huge things, right? So this is major. So I would say investing in payments similar to WeChat or connect to WeChat is probably a safe endeavor to go into because you know it's going to grow. And now, right, so WhatsApp, which was bought eventually for $22 billion from Facebook, have never did any money, now started to do payment in India, which is 1.4 billion people, so there's a market there. So suddenly you look at WeChat and WhatsApp in India and China, and the whole payment system is changing. Any investment in that space, even if you don't know it, but you have money and you're in the space and you go to the conferences, you should be able to figure out your business model. So that's kind of answer both questions.
Okay. Yeah, so that was like the future of the payment space. So.
I had the question ahead.
Yeah, you like that question. I guess we finish up with one final question. I think everybody is interested. You talked about it a bit, but if you could give the one best advice for the starting entrepreneur.
So this is an important one, okay? It's an important one, and it's not one advice. It's how to get advice, right? So I've done a presentation about the art of giving and receiving advice. It's huge. When you start a company, you are dependent on getting advice. It's huge, right? The advice have the power to really make or break. So I would say, I'll give you a few tips and not during the whole presentation, but the first thing is really, really important who you get advice from. If you get advice from Sarah, you're going to get advice from Sarah, right? So Sarah is the Prime Minister's wife. So, right? So it's important who you get advice from. Choose the people. The people will give you advice. If you can't get to the people who give you advice, make sure you get to them anyways. But don't compromise on the quality. There are people who forgot what you haven't learned yet. You want to reach out to them, and they will tell you that you can see everything in clarity that you don't have. So get that. That's the kind of really the most important thing. The second thing, don't dismiss the advice you get because that's a tendency, right? You ask someone, oh, he's old, he doesn't really like whatever, and it can ruin any situation. So don't dismiss, don't discount the advice you get. If you went to the right guy, okay? On the other hand, don't feel forced to use the advice. If you go to a rabbi and you're now forced to use whatever the rabbi told you because this is connected to God, then it's a problem. So rabbi is not a good advice, right? So you need to go to advice where you can actually listen to the advice and eventually decide what you want to do, or may get 3 advices. But I would say, take it very, very seriously how to get, process, and receive advice. The last thing on advice, which is really critical here, is when you go to the, I don't know, Gigi Levy or whatever, Zohar Gilon I saw in the picture, if you go to the to the gurus of the industry and you want to get advice from them, what you're probably going to do is you're going to miss the important, embarrassing details, right? So when you tell, they can give you advice on a story. But in the story, because you're little whatever startup guy who go to the guru, then you don't want to look stupid, then you don't tell all the bad thing that happens to you. But then the story is not complete, so the advice is not right. So try to actually be confident enough to tell the details that you typically want to forget. Then the advice will be much better. So it gives a whole space about how to get and give advice. It's really art. So I would say the first thing is really when you, before you make a decision, understand that you're now in a receiving mode of advice, and then make it into a process. Don't just do it lightly, right? And in many cases, and I saw it especially in rounding of financing, people negotiate and they just negotiate stupid, right? So there's things that are really important to the VCs and things that are not important to VC, and they, for some reason, emphasize these stupid things. What happened when the company goes IPO? Will the stock convert to common or stay preferred? Or what was the question on dilution? Focus on the terms, not on the dilution. Yeah.
So Payoneer is about $1 billion company now. Where do you sit in 5 years from now?
If you say so, yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah, okay. If it's in the paper, it must be true, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. But don't be cheap. Go for it. Yeah, okay.
Where do you sit in 5 years from now?
The company? So if you look again, this is not my. It's not my take. This is destiny written at the time when a company is established. Okay? When you establish a company in Delaware, and it's a Inc., not LLC, Inc., and you take money from VCs, the destination is written right there. The DNA is done. The VC put money to get more money back. This is it. Everything else is game. So we as entrepreneurs or management enjoy the ride, wants to work with people that we like, wants to create value, wants to do nice things and grow the company. They want to see the multiple in a certain amount of time. So therefore, there's either the company going to go public and they're going to sell their shares, the company is going to be bought and they're going to sell their shares, or another bigger fund will buy their shares out, and then we continue. Very simple. So there's no, it's not my call. One of the three will happen. Most of the shareholders of Payoneer already sold, right? So people who joined in 2007 is already, most of them are already out. And they made 40 times their money. Yeah.
So it's only the late investors are.
Yeah. So there's funds I never heard of that is like $1 trillion fund. Like really, like hey, how do you even start, right? So like, I think there's a fund of $1 trillion. What? SoftBank is even bigger than billionaires. Like they manage, it's ridiculous, right? But there's a fund that I met, and they put $25 million into the company. And I think because it's so small for them, they probably bought like a junior guy from MBA. Said, "Hey, you have this investment here. Can you just manage it for?" It's like it's so the financial market when you go to those levels is so ridiculously big. It's embarrassing.
Funds like Starbucks.
Star what?
You should be aware like funds from Starbucks.
I never heard that. Also,
like what they do to Mellanox.
Yeah, active investments when you go public. Okay, but that's so. If you look at active, so this is MBA again. Active investors who, in this I would say, there's Carl Eichmann. He's right. This is in finance, right? So you have people who go into companies, buy shares, and they watch the company. If the company start to blink, they take affirmative action. So Carl Icahn is like the guru of this, and they did it for eBay, and they split eBay from PayPal, and now both companies worth much more. So sometimes it's not that bad. It's very unpleasant for the CEO. It's very, very unpleasant, right? So.
Okay, that's it for our questions. So please, guys, ask ahead whatever you have in mind.
I wanted to ask one is that I mean I'm an undergraduate student, but I've seen that you've done MBA.
If what?
I've seen it on your LinkedIn that you've done MBA program. And I was curious, like, what was the biggest benefit from your studies, the like MBA program?
So, I did engineering school. In Masters of Engineering, I did a program here at the MBA here, where I did like combined engineering and MBA. It was like engineering with minor in business. Then I did, and this is unfair, right? So I've done the Harvard MBA program. But that's a program for CEOs. So the biggest benefit was that you get to meet CEOs from all over, in all the industries all over the world. And that gives you perspective and think and thoughts, and that it's really, then it gives you mostly, confidence in decision making and language and mostly perspective and things. And I have a T-shirt with Harvard and whatever. So, and I can, if I would be in Tinder, I could give me more points. But I think MBA is a very, very good education. Tel Aviv is a very, very good university. No, I'm proud to be part of it. A lot of, you see the alumni. It's very good education if you use it, right? So if you go and you become job is unrelated, but if you actually go to business, it's very useful. Yeah.
Are there books that you recommend to people?
I'll use a provocation. I try to create content, not to consume it. Okay. So you still look at the flash mob. I create content. It's a provocation, but I would say if you go back to the advice, sometimes if you start to do, there's something about action that has the magic to it. And when you start do things, things somehow organize itself to work out. And then you're going to need very specific advice and points where you're going to get caught. So I would say, instead of reading a book, go do action, and then on the way, you'll find spots that you need book advice, and then you get it. Right?
Do you feel that your company disrupted the payments world, or were there many other competitors and you just kind of...
I would say, first of all, it looks stable, it's never is stable.
Right.
Okay, it's never stable. So again, if you look at the Fortune 500 and you look 20, 30, 40 years ago, they don't exist. So there is no stability. And when you in the leadership of a company, then you can be dead in no time, any phase. I don't feel difference in the risk now than then. So I wouldn't say, right? So if you look at I don't feel safe at all.
Okay.
But that's like, if as far as we've been destructive or not, I would say from our perspective, and I think in many companies, right? If you look at the graph, it's like a missile. You need to kind of launch the anti-missile and hoping it's going to be in a place where the missile is going to be there. So you need to aim, right? If you look now at, again, I'm using blockchain, right? So you need to look, where's blockchain going to be 3 years from now? Can it be like a gimmick that doesn't exist? Is it going to be like a standard practice within banks, but in a closed system on banks? Is it going to be, where are you going to aim? And then based on where it's going to be, you need to aim for that product. And we aimed right for the marketplace arena, and happens to be that Amazon got there and Airbnb. Airbnb didn't exist when we started a company. Now it's a very big part of our revenue. So you start a company before the market is ready in many ways, right? That's why the WeChat concept, right? So anyone have a fraud screening capabilities for WeChat, you're probably going to have customers, right? So there's a need. So you need to be ahead of the market. As far as disruption, so I don't know if we disrupted. I think we were part of an infrastructure that was built together. Now we're part of infrastructure. Let me brag a little bit, okay? By now, between Borderfree and Payoneer, most e-commerce companies globally use one of the two companies. So that's it. So that's kind of my part of e-commerce.
Can you repeat that sentence?
Between Borderfree is doing the acquiring side for most of the e-commerce companies, and Payoneer is doing the payout for most e-commerce. So there's an overlap, but there's a distribution. So most of the e-commerce traffic worldwide using one of the two companies. Okay. So that's going to, if I need to give my CV, that's my line. It is just show off. Anything?
Maybe I'm just curious, how do you feel now when you step down as from the CEO position?
It's a good point. Let's talk about it. This is a replacement. You start a company and you're a founder, and then you run the company, and then both companies. I ran the company for 5 years, and then you got to a level of you beat to a point that this is just it's really, really, really hard. And I was in the army in 669, and it's nothing. It's like really hard. And the wear and you fly all the time, and it's so. In both cases, I think it goes psychologically. You need to know what you're good at and what you're not. So most CEOs, founder CEOs, need to be replaced. Very few can grow personally with this and become, for people who can do anything from this into Zuckerberg. So again, I don't know how he operates and what he's, I mean, maybe you have a title, but it's Cheryl is doing most. I don't know how it works there, but very few people can grow. Okay? I can't. I don't want to. Like the whole this process talks about and the evaluation thing and the bonus schemes and the compliance procedure, all this I don't like it. I try not to go to the room so I don't infect the room with bad ideas, right? So there's a certain point where the company needs to be much more organized. And I hope I knew when to do it. But the big difference, and this is most companies, the VC are pushing the CEOs to be replaced, and they try to get the message. But then you don't know who to trust anymore. That's where you need really good advice, right? So VC tells you, hey, you next level, they give you all kind of lines. And in most cases, they will kill the company, but they push replacing the CEOs. And there it's really fine line. You as a CEO needs to know when, and you need to calm down the VC that you will be replaced when you find the right person. Otherwise, and I'm using the provocation here, it's the difference between sex and rape. And in most cases, when the VC are forcing the CEO out, it really feels, you feel violated, you're being betrayed by the people that you let them in. You invite them in, you take their money, they sit on the board, they're useless, really, analysts. They don't understand nothing about closing deals or running companies, and they sit there, and that's it. And so it feels really, really bad. And I've seen it so many times with so many companies. It's frustrating, and then during the period when they look for you, they really find why you're wrong and why you're not fit, then the quality, the life quality of the CEO is miserable. He can't do anything. He has no support from the board. The whole company is suffering for a while until the decision is made. It's terrible, terrible. The VCs are not good at this, and they've done so many mistakes. And,
so how do you feel now? Like if
no,
the current CEO
Scott. So how I met Scott, right? So the CEO of Payoneer, and I'll let you go. This is too long. But so I met Scott at MasterCard. I came to MasterCard and we got a meeting with MasterCard. This is like meeting Osho or whatever, the guru or somewhere. We're meeting whatever right? So, and we met, we go to MasterCard in Purchase, New York, and you meet Scott. This is the guy who is in charge of all prepaid globally at MasterCard. So he gave us half an hour. After like 5 minutes, you realize that he knows what you, like he knows so much ahead of where you are, like, whoa. And like, so he changed the strategy, like he basically said, shut up, here's what you need to do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and everything was dead on. And I told him, listen, obviously, we have nothing to talk about right now, but I hope that one day we'll be big enough to make it interesting for you. So let's be in touch. Basically, it was just, this like started picking up Bar Rafaeli. It's like, he couldn't even, we were like 5 people, and he was running all prepaid. And then we kept in touch, and he was the CEO of a bank that we used. And I told him, one day, when you're not going to want your gold watch from the bank, you're going to get a call from us, right? So it was over 2 years of build-up before I asked him to talk to his wife to get permission to, right? And so it was a whole process and he was a good friend. So then I knew he's much better than me in most of the things that's needed for the company. And then when it comes, I would say, what my kid told me when it happened, like, I explained to him, he was 6 or 7. And he said, I explained to him what you do, and the first thing he said, no way. And then he said, well, one second. So all your problems are going to be his problems? That's really there. And it's, so when it's right, it's beautiful, and we work as partners. Most of the decisions he makes, I wouldn't make, so we don't agree on the decision, but his decisions are so well thought and so educated, I can't say that my decision is better than his. It's very, really smart and thoughtful, right? And there's a balance of risk where you take risk and where you don't take risk, and I tend to take more risk than his, and it's a legitimate decision, so, okay?
Yes,
Okay.